What's going on, my fellow A-plusers? It's your boy, Adam Perez. I'm back, baby, once again with a brand new episode review as we're set to get into the Star Wars TV series Ahsoka, episode number 3. Now, last week we did get spoiled with 2 episodes of Ahsoka last Tuesday. We got episode 1 coming in at about 57 minutes. Episode 2, definitely over the 40-minute mark. So I was really excited and looking forward to diving into episode number 3. And honestly, episode 3 just did not disappoint at all. I mean, the story was there, the action was there. I thought they did some stellar things in regards to Sabine's training, along with some great insight in regards to the New Republic as well. But there is one gripe that I have with this particular episode, and it is, in fact, its runtime. The story, I will say, continues to be strong. Like, Dave Filoni just continues to deliver the goods. He's done it in the Clone Wars animated series. He did it here when it comes to Star Wars Rebels also. He's taking that level of writing ability and putting it into live action. And I think he's doing an amazing job. I think this story is just going to continue to get better and better. And so when it comes to Dave Filoni's writing in here, I'm really not that worried. I think, if anything, this is probably maybe the stronger of the 3 episodes that we've gotten so far, which is saying a lot considering just how short this episode is. If anything, it definitely makes me want to come back for more to see how the story unfolds. But I was going to come back for episode 4 regardless. So I really do wish that Dave Filoni and them maybe gave us a little bit more of a longer episode in here. Especially, look, I know that we're on streaming services, right? So you really have that flexibility to kind of give more, give less in certain episodes, depending on really what, like, the story that you kind of want to get across. And so for the 30 minutes that we got, really stellar stuff. I thought the pacing and the momentum in this episode was really great and pretty eye-opening. And I think giving us some things visually for the first time that we haven't really seen, especially in regards to like Ahsoka fighting in space when it comes to live action. So some really great things in here. But let me just get, if anything, the con out of the way. And that is, in fact, the 30-minute runtime. Now, you can go on Disney Plus and it'll tell you 37 minutes, but you also have to take into account 2 minutes of a recap along with 5 minutes of an end credit scene at the very, oh, not end credit scene, but just the end credits, if you will. And that really dwindles the episode down to like 29 to 30 minutes, unfortunately. Like, it was great seeing Ray Stevenson back at the end of this episode doing his best to just emote on screen, that stoic look of his, definitely contemplating, concerned about the idea that Ahsoka, along with her apprentice, are now on the planet, sends his goons to go ahead and locate them. And as I'm watching in anticipation, I'm just staring at Ray Stevenson, and then all of a sudden, it goes to black. And then boop, come the credits, and I cannot lie to you, I literally got out of my seat. I looked at my girlfriend and I said, they didn't just do that to me. Like, they did not just take me on this great ride just to immediately shut me down like that. So I didn't think the ending was that great. It was just almost a little bit too abrupt. I almost felt that they should have ended on another note. And it does make me wonder, like, is this the Dave Filoni, I've done so much animation, this is how I end off animation episodes? Because I really wanted a little bit more to the ending. But 30 minutes is just not enough, guys. Like, I believe, like, The Mandalorian has probably trained us to be acceptable for these time periods. Andor might have actually spoiled me a little bit more. But when we come into Ahsoka and we get 57 minutes, 43 minutes, I don't even know what the second episode certainly was, but then to just give me 30 minutes, man, you're doing me dirty. You're doing me dirty. So if there is any con, and probably my only con to this episode, it definitely would be the time length of the episode and then just the abrupt ending, because this episode was so good. I honestly thought that this was probably the strongest episode that we've had so far. So let me talk about some of the good things that really came out of this episode that I personally was a really big fan of. First off, I really appreciated just the opening sequence of Sabine's Jedi training, and really Sabine's entire training in this particular episode. It is something really cool about seeing her devoted again and this time really wanting to put her best foot forward to making this work. I mean, she clearly tells that to Ahsoka in here, like, look, I'm really going to give it my all this time, and I certainly do believe her. The idea of having somebody like Hugh Yang around certainly doesn't help one's confidence, to certainly say the least. And real quick, just shout out to David Tennant as Hugh Yang. I know he voiced him in Rebels, but just to get him here for like a whole entire season, David Tennant is just so incredibly talented. He's my personal doctor from Doctor Who, but I love everything that he certainly touches. Like, even if the project itself isn't great, David Tennant is going to be like the solidifying factor in any project. He's going to be the one that is going to like deliver. And so he continues to do that, and I absolutely love him being sort of the middleman between Sabine and Ahsoka, but also the very knowledgeable one, and one that doesn't know when to bite his tongue when he certainly needs to. It's probably his protocol, though. Kind of annoying, kind of like C-3PO, to certainly say the least. But he definitely adds a ton of value and super insightful, and I really love him as a part of this team when it comes to Sabine along with Ahsoka. So when we see Sabine in here doing her lightsaber training, I thought it was really cool to see just a new technique in how Jedi train, utilizing Hugh Yang as this droid that can have like 4 dummy lightsabers to really give the student the ability to learn how to strike, where to strike, sort of thing, and kind of grade them upon it. And so I thought that was actually pretty insightful. It was really cool to kind of see traditional Jedi training methods in here utilized even to current times when it comes to Sabine and them. And then even harkening back to Luke Skywalker's training from A New Hope, when Ahsoka asks Sabine to put on sort of that visor. Granted, Luke didn't have a mentor to strike at him, sort of thing. They definitely used their robot for that means. But it was just really cool to kind of see Sabine and Ahsoka kind of training together, right? Especially based off of the fact that I don't believe we've ever seen Ahsoka really train anybody before. Definitely not in Clone Wars, because she was just an apprentice herself before she stepped away. Kanan wind up training Ezra. So the idea of seeing Ahsoka with an apprentice feels like new territory that we're charting, right? Like, even though we didn't even see their training previous, this feels like uncharted territory for probably Ahsoka and ourselves as a viewer, even though she's done this before. But there is something to see just how far the Ahsoka character has come and her trying to train Sabine once again. And I do think it's pretty eye-opening too, the fact that she chose Sabine based off of the idea, not that she chose her because of this, but that she chose Sabine knowing the fact that she is not that connected to the Force as others, right? They really emphasize in this episode too, just the idea that, look, the Force lives in everybody. And look, I know George Lucas has said that. I think he probably emphasized that a little bit more too in the idea of the Phantom Menace, when you start bringing up midichlorians, that people are like, no, don't talk about midichlorians, right? But it kind of emphasizes the idea that, look, the Force truly is within all of us. It really is just going to take not only focus and concentration and training, but also some level of talent. And some people are going to be more talented than others. And the fact that we have somebody like Hugh Yang in here, that's like, the Jedi Order wouldn't have even picked up Sabine in the first place, I find really eye-opening in regards to, so why did Ahsoka? And the fact that, again, referencing the idea, like, you did come from a long line of just non-traditional Jedi, right? Like Qui-Gon definitely pushed back against the Jedi Council, didn't always see eye to eye with them. Then you got Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's kind of picking up after his master and sort of determined to train Anakin, regardless of what the Jedi Council certainly says, before Yoda's like, all right, fine, he's your apprentice, sort of mentality. Clearly, we got Anakin, who's just a maverick, and all of that definitely falls into the lap of Ahsoka. So it's just always interesting to kind of see one's past and maybe how one has kind of become like their master at the end of the day. And so I am really curious to see what Ahsoka's trainings are going to be like, and the lessons that she certainly teaches Sabine in here. But to really get back to that master and apprentice concept, I thought this episode did a really great job in that, getting the opportunity to see Sabine training with Hugh Yang along with Ahsoka, and then potentially trying to tap into utilizing the Force, right? I love the scene in here where she's trying to move the cup cup, but is unsuccessful. And eventually by the end, she's like, all right, you got this round. So look, I definitely do believe that at the end of this season, that cup is going to move. Whether or not it's going to move fully into her hand or move a smidge, it's just kind of cool, the opportunity to see, like, look, anybody, I don't want to say anybody can be a Jedi, but anybody can really be a Force user, depending on the focus, the training. But definitely make no mistake, it certainly takes some talent. And I also appreciate the fact that they mentioned the fact that she's Mandalorian, the idea of her having melee attacks, right, using weapons, that kind of comes firsthand for her. The obstacle is really going to be learning the Force. So I thought the episode did a really great job of establishing some great Jedi training, some great lessons for Ahsoka, and I mean for Sabine, and honestly a great lesson here for Ahsoka too, because I did find some growth in her as a character. To me, I appreciated seeing her kind of give up control of the situation that they were kind of in the middle of, especially during the dogfight in space that they wind up having, right? Having to take on Shin along with Marek and a couple of other pilots. But the idea of sort of seeing those two clash and battle against each other, you know, with the words of Hu Yang, it really allowed Ahsoka to kind of center herself again and just realize, like, what can I do as a master to assist my apprentice? They clearly haven't been doing this for very long on their second go run, so you definitely have to get into the motions of getting used to each other once again. But I do think it says something about Ahsoka when she realizes that maybe I'm kind of in the way, and you know, causing Sabine to not be as successful as she possibly can. So to push one's ego aside and to give up that control in that situation and now sort of form that bond so that you both on the same page, it really certainly paid off for the both of them and definitely allowed them to get a little bit closer, because these two were just going to be going at each other's throats if Ahsoka certainly didn't. So I thought that was actually pretty cool to kind of see the mindset that she had to certainly put herself through. So yeah, really great stuff when it comes to Sabine's training and even the growth of Ahsoka in here. What else did I want to talk about? Look, the great space battle. I thought the idea of not only seeing Sabine as the gunner, but Ahsoka in the spaceship sort of deflecting blast as she goes out onto the spaceship with a lightsaber. I thought that was pretty freaking cool. I don't think we've ever seen that in live action before. It was one of those moments when Ahsoka's like, hey, I'm gonna go out there. And I'm like, out there? What do you mean you're gonna go out there? You're gonna hold your breath or something? Like, is this gonna be a Princess Leia from The Last Jedi where she's out in space and she does her Mary Poppins like glide back to the ship sort of thing? I was really worried and what trajectory this was gonna go. Like, you might be able to get away with that in animation form, but live action, this is gonna be interesting. But the way they executed it with her actually in a spacesuit, I thought it was one of the coolest shots I have ever seen of a Jedi on a ship out in space with two lightsabers activated. It was just beautiful to see. Beautiful motion of her doing the cartwheels in slow-mo. She's cutting up the ships as they go by. Just some badass Jedi stuff that I think we all certainly want to see, and things that I've never seen on screen before. All right, so this definitely puts Ahsoka in like a completely different realm. Like, we've always wanted to see Jedi kind of like in their prime, and I know a lot of people were certainly disappointed we didn't get the opportunity to see that with Luke Skywalker, which I personally didn't mind, because look, 30 years have certainly passed, but to be able to see a Jedi do some shit like this, yeah, bro, I was super stoked to certainly see it, and I think the execution certainly came off brilliantly. And speaking of space, the Purrgils. I was actually a big fan of the Purrgils, the space whales in here once again, as Dave Filoni fulfills his big dream of bringing these space whales to life. We saw them in animation. Now we get the opportunity to see them in live action. And I thought it was a really incredible scene. I thought special effects wise, it was pretty cool. It was up there with like spaceship chases. Like, I think it was up there with like the Millennium Falcon and the asteroid field from Empire Strikes Back. I'll even throw Rey piloting the Millennium Falcon on the desert of Jakku and the sort of the graveyard of battleships. I thought that was pretty fascinating and really got me entrenched into it. Hell, I'll even put the solo movie where you got Han Solo managing the Falcon, going through the what is it, the run that he was going through, that he's so famous for, right? So I definitely think it lives up to some things like that in regards to being able to see the Purrgils in live action and how they navigated and weave their way through the tentacles and stuff. So visually, it was very, very appealing, and I just find it as a like a cool omen for somebody like Sabine. Like, she even mentions the idea, like, I haven't seen these creatures since the day Ezra disappeared. And so maybe this is the sign. I don't want to say that she didn't believe before that she was on the correct mission, but I gotta think that this is sort of like a great sign for Sabine to think that this is where I'm supposed to be at this particular moment in time in my life, sort of thing. So I thought it was brilliantly executed, and it made sense for the Purrgils to be there, especially when you learn from Hugh Yang just the idea of like the hyperspace lanes, what the massive hyperspace ring is certainly meant to do in regards to connecting galaxies, how the Purrgils use those connective hyperspace lanes between galaxies for their migrational periods and things like that. So the fact that the hyperspace ring is in this particular location seems to me that that's probably where the hyperspace galaxy lane certainly is. And so it would make sense that the Purrgils would find themselves on this planet during their migration period, sort of thing. So it didn't feel like Dave Filoni just tossed them in there to toss them in there. It certainly felt like they had a reason to be there. But I thought it was pretty cool, man. And I can't wait to certainly see more of them. And I also really appreciated the further insight into the New Republic, or as I like to call it, the Doo-Doo Republic now, because honestly, the way that they are managing stuff is just too, okay? It's pretty bad. It's one of those things like The Mandalorian, I think, opened our eyes to kind of see how the New Republic was handling the transition from the Empire into sort of this new status quo. Some of the methodology that the New Republic Kins were certainly utilizing in trying to acclimate these Imperial officers into what it is that the New Republic certainly does. But clearly that outreach doesn't expand everywhere, as we saw in episode 2. Like the shipyards, there's a lot of oaths to the Imperials still. And the fact that they have this mentality of like singing kumbaya and holding hands with everybody, like that's gonna fix the problem. It's pretty disturbing to kind of see them like really turn a blind eye. Like the idea that they have this hubris about them, like, we overcame this war, things are good now. Like, hey, we want you to say this oath, talking to an Imperial officer, like you say an oath and now all of a sudden their ideology is supposed to change sort of along with it, and you still keep them at work, right? Like, it's just very much that mentality of like a government that just does not get it. Like, you can see why something like the First Order would certainly rise, and mind you, that's like 20 something years into the future. I mean, we're still talking currently. So who knows what's bound to certainly rise from these people kind of just living on cloud nine because they've gotten a victory, yet don't know how to necessarily hold on to it so much. Like the idea that Hera, who has been busting her ass for this republic and this rebellion for such a long time, doesn't even get the time of day anymore to really sort out potential enemies and potential threats to what the New Republic is certainly trying to establish. Like, as a government, you would think that that would almost be built into your defense system, but instead it's like, you know, look, we need this money for other things, you know, we got to keep these operations continuing to run, and again, it comes down to just money, right? Like, they don't want anything to have to stop. They don't want to stop production on things. They don't want to have to get rid of workers and bring other workers in. They just want things to continue to work like a well-oiled machine, and expect these Imperial officers with a completely different ideology to eventually come around. And you don't think that time period for these people to come around, that terrible stuff isn't going to happen under your nose? So it just, if anything, this really did not establish any belief system that I have in the New Republic for doing the right thing or doing the smart thing, to certainly say the least. And instead, now you've got, even though you've got Chancellor Mothma very much at the forefront, it's kind of cool to see where Mothma has come from and something like Andor to where she's at now here when it comes to Ahsoka. But it seems very much like Mothma is still surrounded by people she probably can't trust. People that are probably on her side, but take things way too lightly. And people that are probably not on her side, but pretend to certainly be so and undermine any activity that's possible in protecting them from any future threat, sort of thing. So just thought it was just really eye opening to kind of see the fact that the government just won the war, yet their hubris is just out of this world, in the sense of like, you're just really allowing evil and corruption to eventually come back because you're kind of turning a blind eye to it. And it's just really, really disturbing. So I am kind of curious to see what other threats pop up in this time period before we even get to something like the First Order. So it's like, yeah, I can see why this this government continued to fail after all these times. If anything, I will say this, in last week's review that we talked about, I did mention, like, look, I am not necessarily the biggest fan of Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera. Like, she wouldn't necessarily be my first choice. But I did think within the first couple episodes, she did a good job of at least establishing the personality traits of Hera. And I definitely agree with that here even more this time. And I think she even gave a better performance in this episode, honestly, as Hera. And I think, again, a lot of that does go back to the director. Who's directing you? Do you know how to communicate with an actor to get their best performance out? Clearly, this director certainly did, because I really felt like Mary Winstead really channeled Hera in this particular episode and did a fantastic job. So shout out to Hera and the unfortunate New Republic. Quick honorable mentions I will just get out of the way, especially considering the fact that I'm talking about Hera here. Jacen, baby. That's right. Jacen popped up. We saw Jacen at the finale for Star Wars Rebels, and we were wondering to ourselves, like, are we going to see this kid ever again? It was like it almost felt like a one-off, if you will. And if anything, I wasn't quite sure if he was even going to pop back up when it comes to live action. But the fact that they got themselves an actor, green hair and all, it's really cool to kind of see him pop up in here. Whether or not Jacen pops up in the rest of the series, who knows? But I think if there is anything from that brief interaction that we have with Jacen, it does make me ask some questions about Hera herself. When he says something like, hey, I heard that Aunt Sabine is going to be a Jedi, I want to be a Jedi one day too. Does he know about Kanan? Like, does he know about his father? Like, I got to assume that Sabine probably helped raise him if he's referring to her as Aunt Sabine. So I'm curious. Like, he says, one day I want to be a Jedi. Has he started his training at all? Is he Force sensitive? Or is that like an aspect of of the kid's life that Hera has not talked to him about or mentioned him about? Does Jacen even know about Kanan, right? So the fact that Hera doesn't say, one day, maybe one day you have the potential, son. Like, she doesn't say any of that. She just pats his head and sort of smiles. So it does make me like question, how much does Jacen know about his father's past, or like his father, or just his growing up in his past, or have people kept things from him? So I will be interested to see if that gets answered a little bit more as the series goes. But am I the only person that thought about that, or do you guys just automatically assume that he's Force sensitive, or that his parent, that Hera has talked to him about it? I kind of want to know your guys' thoughts. But yeah, other than that, guys, really great episode. My only gripe, 30 minutes. Take that back. Give me like 40, 45 minutes. I'm cool. I don't need an hour all the time, but like 40, 45 minutes would be great. Just don't hit me with 30 minutes again, please. Because this ain't animation, all right? If I want to watch a sitcom, if I want to watch a game show, if I want to watch a cartoon, I'll go do that for 30 minutes. But when it comes to live action, I'm gonna need the goods. But other than that, man, stellar episode. At the end of the day, though, these are just simply my A+ opinions. I always want to know yours, though. What did you guys think of episode 3 of Ahsoka? Let your thoughts be known in the comment section box below. But until next week, guys, do me a big favor as always. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. May the Force be with you. Talk to you later. Bye.